Right, thanks everyone. Let's get started then. So let me put my camera on, and so thank you for joining this record. As I said, to share this with about 200 people showed an interest in this. There's a common topic we see a lot with modernizing data warehouses to the cloud. In this case, we're focusing on a journey that GameStop made to GCP, helped with Datametica. So Datametica and Google and GameStop are all supporting this webinar. And the recording will be available shortly afterwards, and upon request, we'll make the recording available for people. So I just want to do a little intro first of all. I'll introduce myself, Michael, and Lita, maybe you can do the same. I'm Phil Shelley. I'm one of the founders of Datametica. I'm the president based in the USA. Long history as in the CIO, CTO role previously before we started Datametica. I'm going to give you a little bit about Datametica at the end. The initial bit, we're going to talk about the GameStop journey. And Michael, would you kick off your intro as well, please?
Sure. My name is Michael Jones, and I'm the Director of Enterprise Information Management at GameStop, which really means we own our data warehouse and our databases and our business intelligence functions as well.
Hi, my name is Liju Matthew. I'm a cloud data architect at GameStop. My focus is on data integrations and cloud, mostly on AWS and GCP.
Great, thank you, Michael. Liju. There is a question option, Q&A option on the top right of the meeting. I would appreciate if you would add your questions as we go. When we get to the end, we'll have time for Q&A, which I'd really like to see some questions, so please do that. First of all, Michael's going to cover the next 4 slides, I think it is, Michael, on the strategy and why you did the migration and any sort of learnings from it. So over to you, Michael.
Sure. Thank you, Phil. So sometime early last year, actually the year before, we really took a modernization initiative for our data warehouse and data architecture and our business intelligence platforms. And we really truly had a platform that was unsupportable to some extent. You know, we had project after project that either didn't finish or didn't get started correctly, or, you know, was different things. Originally, we had a legacy data warehouse that was on SQL Server. It was very large, was 10 years old. And so at some point we had started a migration to Teradata, and just like any big project like that, you know, it ran into hiccups and never completely met its end goal. So we ended up with Teradata as well as a big SQL Server data warehouse. And then we also had Vertica on the side, which was one of those proof of concept type projects that happened, but somehow just never made it to production, but never really went away either. And so between that, as well as having multiple integration tools as well with IS and Informatica and a data lake in Amazon, you know, we really needed to start making a change. And so originally we had planned to just move, you know, the rest of the SQL Server stuff to Teradata, and then really realized that Teradata was going to come back and make us migrate to a even more expensive platform, hardware platform. And so we really started taking a look and saying, you know, this is a good time to make a clean break and just look at our expenses and all the different issues we had. You want to flip?
Yep.
So really, this is a lot of the stuff we were trying to fix. You know, we had a very expensive environment with Teradata. Even though Teradata had implemented it for us, we really weren't seeing the performance that we wanted to see out of Teradata. You know, we have some very large batch processes, for example, that run overnight, bringing in data from our stores and from our warehouses. And, you know, as you can imagine with a retailer, you know, that volume demand changes quite a bit with the season. And really, you know, come peak season around Thanksgiving and Black Friday and Christmas, it really just couldn't scale. And that just created a lot of problems. That meant our executives could not make decisions quickly. And again, it would sometimes be the end of the day before we even had data available to executives. So we really wanted to find a platform that would perform and was very scalable. Our other big issue was we had, reporting and even our executive reporting, sometimes coming out of Teradata, sometimes coming out of our legacy SQL Server warehouse. And pretty much most of the time it didn't exactly tie together, whether that was just because of an issue with the data or some business, way things were defined when we put in the second data warehouse. And so our real goal was to try to bring that together so that there was really one good view of the data that the business could rely on. So at the end goal, it was a modernization effort with really trying to reduce costs. I mean, it's no secret, GameStop is in a changing environment in the game space with streaming. And so really we were taking a look at all of our different opportunities to reduce cost as well as, provide more for less. So.
Okay, next one.
We've really, greatly made some big improvements just through this process and working with Datametica. All of our data is consolidated now in one space. Our costs have, between what we were able to actually sunset these older environments and the associated support, our costs have gone down approximately 73%, just our operating costs on the platform. Our performance has quadrupled. This last season, we ended up and we're doing some work on some upstream systems. So we put, probably 10 times more data than we would normally load on Black Friday through the system. And it finished only 10 minutes later. If we had tried to do that on Teradata, it probably would have been 3 days. So the platform and the design that we worked out with Datametica was exceptional. Google brings the opportunity to scale. We do use the flexibility around the way the slots work and scale up and down depending on what's going on during the day. So it's been great. We've also had, a bigger emphasis on providing some real-time data, which we really couldn't do that well before to executives. And so that's happening. So really, our marketing group, we're doing a lot more data science. For all the new executives, there was a large turnover of executives, and our business changed with COVID. Everybody wanted to look at data just a little bit differently. And so we had that flexibility to start doing that where we couldn't before. So pricing and promotions has become a very large focus for us as well. And so now we're, able to build that out and have that data available for our merchandisers and for our executives to even, on Black Friday, for example, make real-time decisions on, hey, are we starting to erode margin, on this one product, especially as we've been going through with the new console cycle, things of that nature, and really watching the margin on the specials we run, et cetera. So all things that we couldn't have done in the past. So it's been really, really beneficial for GameStop. And then as far as working with Datametica, when we first told Teradata that we were going to move off of Teradata, they told us it was going to take us 2 years, and we were able to do it in less than a year working with Datametica, and it was really, really successful project. The expertise in GCP and the availability of resources was a big differentiator. As we had to flex up and down, as different priorities changed, as they tend to do during a project, and when we had to, accelerate at different points to hit certain milestones, Datametica could turn around new resources amazingly fast in a relatively new technology stack. So that was really a big differentiator. Obviously, working with their tool set, which I think Phil is going to talk about shortly, really helped us around data conversion and really building out the infrastructure and doing some of the lift and shift type activities we did was really beneficial as well. We did do a lot of new development as well that they helped with. And even today, we're working with Datametica to continue our journey as we continue to enhance our data warehouse. So not just a one-time project, but as well ongoing relationship as we continue to evolve as a business and evolve our data to meet the business demands. So, I mentioned the big thing was really the cost. We designed it in such a way to make, our data movement and data extracting and things at a lower cost, and it said it paid off. It was literally a 73% reduction in operating costs just around support as well as usage and data storage. So made huge impact.
Great, thank you, Michael. I'll pick it up now. And by the way, just on that, we do see Teradata customers typical to going to BigQuery-centered approaches are seeing in the region of 70% recurring savings on total costs. That's total cost of ownership. Because of the managed services on GCP, there's certainly less labor involved as well as licensing and other things. So that's good to see that you got that, Michael. But a little bit about Datametica. We were formed based on being customers ourselves. So a little over 8 years ago, I was the CTO at Sears Holdings. So we had Teradata at Sears and Kmart and Lands' End. We had Teradata, Netezza, Greenplum, Oracle, DB2, mainframe, a little bit of everything. And we did move those systems to the cloud ourselves manually, and we realized that that has to be accelerated. So we spent 8 years based on our own experience finding ways to get faster, more automated, less risk, less cost ways of migrating data warehouses to the cloud. And not just traditional data warehouses. As you see here, we move Hadoop extensive. We were big users of Hadoop as a customer in the early days. Now we're moving a lot of Hadoop to the cloud. And of course, Netezza is getting towards the end of life. Customers are looking at that. Teradata, as Michael said, is expensive, although it's a good product. We can certainly outperform and certainly at a lower cost on cloud. And SaaS modernization is something that we're starting to see as well quite a bit. So that's a little bit about Datametica. We have these automation tools to avoid all of this manual effort. So understanding where to start. In fact, I just got off a call with a customer a few minutes ago. It was a large bank, global bank, and they also want to move Teradata initially and a lot of Hadoop. They don't know where to start, how to break it down into manageable chunks. Which are the first movers? What's the dependencies? What's the lineage between all of those artifacts, the ETL pipelines, tables? So how do you start to do that? That's what Eagle's all about. It's a machine learning based tool where we take in the SQL logs from these warehouses, and we build a graph database and a relational database as well, showing the full lineage and dependencies, and break it down into, break the whole migration project down into small manageable sprints that are coherent and coordinated together. So Eagle is a massive help to understand where to get started in these big complex migrations. I mean, humanly impossible to do otherwise. Next is we've got to convert code. We have to convert ETL transformational logic, SQLs to different dialects of SQL, stored procedures, Teradata BTEC scripts, for example. We want to move those to native cloud SQLs. In this case, BigQuery SQL, because moving transformation logic, let's say, that's running in BTEC on Teradata, being controlled by an ETL tool to run natively on BigQuery, we'll see massive performance improvement. It's not uncommon to see 10 times or more better compute time on transformation logic. So Raven is a conversion tool, converts the ETL transformation logic, the SQL stored procedures into native BigQuery SQL scripts. The next problem is when you move a large amount of data that's in production, is changing minute by minute. how do you build a new environment and make sure that it's valid? We struggled with this a lot in the early days, and because we don't really want to do a big bang cutover. We want to be able to run both systems in parallel and keep matching the data at a table level, but also down to a cell level in production whilst the ETLs are running, and that historically has been very difficult. Pelican does that by building hash trees based on hashing algorithms on both the target and the original legacy system and the new cloud target, and we match the hashes using very intelligent rule-based hashing, and we can now run these systems in parallel and de-risk the migration. And that avoids these big bang weekend cutovers. We can now run parallel systems for weeks or even months if we have to. So that's how we've managed to de-risk and take out the cost of these. So the way that works from a flow point of view is we start with an eagle assessment to understand the current state, what workload is running, what's dependent on what users are doing, what ETLs are bringing in, when are they running, where at a column level does that data flow to, and how is it consumed downstream at a BI tool level. Eagle produces that graph database and an interactive SQL database of all of that dependency and produces a migration plan based on sprints. Next, we use Raven to convert the code, all the SQLs, ETLs, reports, queries, convert those to the new cloud native. That saves an enormous amount of time and errors. We're getting very high percentage automated conversion now of these different artifacts. Then the Pelican comes in to validate data at the cell level. And now we're starting to see, as you get onto cloud, there's an optimization phase that starts as companies mature on cloud. How do you optimize? How do you manage cost? Do you have expensive queries that could be found and optimized? Do you have long-running queries that could be optimized? So that cloud optimization is a new growing sector of the market, actually. As I said, the biggest thing we want to do now is to de-risk these migrations. We want to avoid these big bangs. If any of you have been through, large SAP implementations like I have, and you have to go live over a weekend and you just hope it all works. And I've been through one that actually didn't go so well, I remember. It's really traumatic. So by using this approach with Eagle planning, then the Raven code conversion, then the parallel running with our Pelican tool, we really have reduced the risk a lot. In fact, we don't do a big bang cutover. We just gradually abandon the old system as the new system is both validated and customers are ready, and the change management process is finished. So the de-risking is a very important part of this automation suite that we've developed. So the things we do, Datametica, we build all the way from the foundation to designing things in the data model, setting up pipelines, both the historical and the incremental, replacing some of the ETL functionality, especially the transformation logic that's being fired off by ETL tools. We want to get that into the warehouse itself. Clearly, there's the connectivity to BI tools and reporting tools, orchestration and scheduling. How do you orchestrate and schedule Google Cloud activities to be part of your enterprise? And we're very big proponents of that. So your Google Cloud schedule becomes subservient to your master enterprise schedule. How do you connect those together? We have some very good technology in making that work. So what we build is robust and reliable and is manageable from an operations point of view. And our validation tools I talked about. So that's some of the services that Datametica do. We work super closely with Google. The Google partnership is really strong between Datametica and Google. I think Michael and colleagues saw that. Our people at Datametica are very tightly coupled with Google engineering. We know what's coming in BigQuery. We're involved in the early releases and testing of technologies. We have a lot of certified people. We're engaged in some of the most complex Google projects around the world as a key partner. So we're very fortunate to have a really strong relationship with Google, and I think in this case, GameStop could see that. From a call to action point of view, this is how you get started. If you're interested in the GameStop story, how we accelerated this, how we de-risked it, how we get started, get out of the trap and actually get started to understand these complex systems, we can take you through demos of our Eagle tool and Raven tool and Pelican tool, show you how we would get started. We can do proof of concepts, we can do pilots, Google are very supportive of those, by the way, so your Google account team will be very helpful in arranging those. So we can do an early workshop first of all, then get started with an actual Eagle demo. Lee's contact is on here. He doesn't mind being called in the middle of the night. He has young children, lucky for Lee. And now it's time really for some Q&A. So first of all, I want to say super thanks to GameStop. They were a great customer, still are for us. And for Michael for his support and for participating in the webinar. We would love some questions. I don't know if we have any, but if the guys on the admin side of this webinar can let us know if you have any questions, we'll read them out.
Yeah, I don't see any questions that came in. So if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll answer them for you.
One of the questions that comes up a lot, and maybe I can ask that to Michael, and it just came up an hour and a half ago for me. This was a large bank. They've been struggling for nearly 2 years to figure out how to get started. What they see in front of them is a lot of complexity, but also the business is super reliant on their data warehouse system from a business point of view. And they just were struggling how to get started. They've been paralyzed actually for several years trying to figure out how to get started. Their Teradata machine in this case is coming up in renewal in 18 months. And I think, Michael, you had something similar to that. So I think you could see now that it's feasible to move these in a reasonable period of time. Do you have any thoughts for other people that are struggling with how to get started?
Yeah, that really, that mirrors exactly what we had. We had an upcoming renewal hanging over our head, and was really thinking through how we can get off quick. So, the first thing we did was reach out to Google. We did take the time to look at some different platforms, and in the end, Google did win out. And so we met with Google, brought it in, made that decision to go with Google. Actually, speaking to, Phil mentioned the relationship they have with Google. It was actually Google who did bring Datametica to us. And so we started meeting with Datametica, went through a lot of current state. Our direction actually did change in the middle of the plan a couple times around our lake and different things. So, as soon as we started bringing in Datametica resources, started working on kind of wireframe of what we wanted our architecture to look like, really started looking at some of the issues we had in our current data and the way it was presented, and really defined what it was we wanted to build. And then Datametica took some time, to go through some of the tools and do the analysis that Phil mentioned earlier, to come back and make some recommendations on how we should proceed, and really, take a look at how we wanted to actually build it, what we wanted our in-state architecture to look like. And so that took a little time, and in the end, it worked out very well for us. So
I have one more question, Michael. Some customers are asking about how they, from a change management point of view, retraining users, how difficult is it to get them to switch from, say, Teradata and SQL Server to BigQuery, a cloud-based rather than on-premise? Can you talk a little bit about change management, how you handled that, how it went? What did people, did they find that journey difficult, or how did you address it?
It became a project on its own. We had a very extensive self-service BI environment where our business was used to using Cognos to, go against a semantic layer and Teradata themselves, and it's all reports they own. So we really had to sit down and run a project to ensure that we could work with the business and get them moved over before they lost, all the reporting that they had. And so we were able to, and this comes back to kind of the design, we were able to build our kind of presentation layer in Google very similar to the way we had it in Teradata, so that it was fairly seamless. Excuse me. They did have to do a little bit of extra work. So it wasn't too bad for them. They were used to running through a presentation layer, so they didn't really see the underlying stuff except for our power users. And, our power users got on Google and just love it because it was so much faster. Anybody who knows how to write SQL and get on the database directly just walked away just thrilled, including our own data analysts on our team as well. I'm very happy with the performance. So
Great, thank you.
Great, well, thank you. Yeah, we did have one question here from how are the marketing teams and product teams at GameStop? How have they benefited from the move to GCP?
Really just access to data. We're working with some different data science firms as well who are coming in and looking at our data, and it's structured in such a way now that our teams can start building better marketing campaigns. We didn't have very good integrations between our marketing tools and the Teradata environment. About the same time that this was happening, we did put in some new marketing platforms as well that enabled them to see a lot more data and use it better than we ever have. So it's really just access to data and being able to use that data to really accomplish their goals.
I think we have another one, right, Lee? Do we have another one?
Yep, we do. So really one of the questions was, how has the user experience changed, and how is it perceived, by the users with the big change that moving to GCP?
As I mentioned before, for them, it's just a lot faster. We also were able to take that opportunity to kind of redesign some of our architecture, to make the access to the data better, organize the data in such a way that it's easier to look at, easier for them to find through a self-service environment. And ultimately our executives as well, have access to data a lot sooner. Probably an hour and a half sooner that our executive type reporting goes out. And so GameStop is really turning into more of a data-driven company with data-driven decisions being made. And so having that data to them, that much earlier in the morning is a really big deal. We used to not get reports out till probably 8 a.m, and now we have executives who are looking at reports at 6 to 6:15. So they're really, and if it's late, we hear about it. So they've kind of gotten spoiled by having that access earlier in the morning.
Any more, Lee?
Yeah, we got one more. What about next steps, activities with the data? For example, exports or tying into third-party tools.
We actually have quite a few third-party tools that we interact with, and that's even other vendors as well as just third-party tools we use. So our loyalty program is managed by another company, and so at the same time that we did this migration, we did migrate all of our third-party type of tools as well. So we have direct integrations to our Salesforce marketing systems and website, things of that nature. We have some our loyalty program I mentioned, as well as just some vendors that we use to do analysis. We send data on a regular basis as well. So we are continuing just to evolve. Say over the last year, GameStop as a company has changed. I think if anybody's, read about how companies were impacted by COVID, e-com used to make up about 5% of our sales. And then, with COVID, I think our percent went up 800%. And so really we had to have that flexibility to be able to adjust. And it did take some work, but luckily doing it on this platform was a lot easier than it could have been. Feel free to ask some technical questions too. That's why Leju's here.
We had another one here that was asking, what was the volume of the data in Teradata, and what were the challenges while moving to GCP? Because it doesn't support most of the Teradata functions.
There you go. There's a technical question for you, Liju.
Well, I can take that. So I'm exactly not sure about the volume. I think right now we have around 50 to 60 terabytes of data in GCP now. So while migrating to GCP, we didn't face any challenges. Uh, so what we have done is we exported all the data into GCS, the Google storage, and then we started loading those historical data into BigQuery. So it was a smooth process. We didn't come across any issues. And coming to the Teradata functions, we were able to quickly modify those functions to reflect to what it was with BigQuery. So it was like a minor changes to the functions. So we didn't run into any big major problems with BigQuery functions.
I could add to that slightly. Our Raven tool we talked about automatically converts functions that are different on a source platform to a suitable function that is available, or a set of functionality on the target platform. So if there's a function on Teradata that doesn't exist, Raven automatically refactors that into code that will run on the target, in this case BigQuery, but give the same result. And that automation takes away nearly all of the headaches in those cases. We don't really see that as a problem anymore. I mean, there's nothing we can't do on BigQuery, for example, that we could do on Teradata. It just has to be refactored in some cases to be more ANSI standard SQL, and that's what we use our Raven tool for. Any more questions? We're pretty much at our time. So unless there's any more, I want to say thank you again. First of all, to thank you for Michael and Liju for doing this. We really appreciate it. You've been great partners, and thanks to GameStop generally to agreeing to do this webinar. I know Google appreciates it. Datametica does too. The Google team have been great to work with. The Datametica team that was working on GameStop were a fantastic team. I want to thank them as well. You do have the contact information for follow-up here, Lee, there at the bottom of the screen. This is going to be available recorded. It can be requested, I believe, from Lee. And I think we're going to wrap it up from there. And thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. We're going to stop.
Hey, Phil, we had one last question, Phil, if we had time.
Okay, we can stay on if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. What was the greatest hurdle with the migration? Was it the speed or data loss prevention?
I would say speed. It was a pretty aggressive migration. We definitely would have liked to have a lot more time. Say it was a last minute change in our plan to move to Google, so we had to shift around quite a bit. And we had, in conjunction, we have a lot of reports that were built off Teradata. So we had another vendor that was working on just the reporting side, and trying to have that coordination. All when you're under a very compressed timeline, was a little bit of work, but we got through it. Datametica was extremely flexible, and we had that communication, and so managed to get through it. A lot of it was just kind of unwinding what was there. There were a lot of things in our Teradata implementation that we weren't very happy with, after Teradata left, and even some things that we found weren't really done the way they were supposed to be. So we took the opportunity to fix a lot of that stuff along the way. So,
and the migrations for us now, Teradata used to take a long time to migrate. We're typically moving Teradatas in the 6 to 9 month range now, end to end. The longest piece of that is change management, user cutover, application cutover, and testing, parallel running. Technically now we can go pretty fast on these migrations. The automation we have is really good, but the change management, of course, does take some time, and retraining users, fixing bugs, repointing applications. Those are obviously the most challenging things that everyone has to address. So the timing is getting very compressed now. Even very large Teradatas now, we're typically moving in under a year, which was thought to be impossible just a couple of years ago. Are we really done now, or are we not done, Lee?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's we had there. I didn't know if we wanted to. We had Jerry online. If we want to talk about his engagement with Datametica and with the Eagle, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that here real quick.
Yeah, only if it's a help. And for the folks on the call, I just swooped in. I wasn't an invited guest, so apologies, Lee and Phil. But I'm a Google Cloud FSR, and I just wanted to speak to the value of the Eagle assessment, right? And thank Michael for bringing the real story to folks who are considering both our platform and Datametica. The Eagle assessment was absolutely invaluable for this customer. They're the largest healthcare payer in the Philadelphia market. So massive Teradata environment, very similar to Michael's at GameStop. And the Eagle assessment, the biggest outcome from the business perspective was the predictability of the migration cost. So what the output of Eagle allowed us to do was go back to the CFO of that company, and he had a lot of comfort in knowing very clearly what the migration effort was going to cost, not only Datametica's costs, but the cost to run the GCP, the Google Cloud Platform costs. So it became very predictable for a very clearly defined set of data warehouses. And that gives a tremendous amount of comfort to this customer and is very repeatable. And as a result, too, the work's expanded well beyond data warehouse, right? We're engaging Datametica now to support the data science team and different kinds of legacy databases, including Hadoop and Spark and some of those others. So I can't say enough good things about Phil and the team. And we're thrilled that not only would you consider Datametica, but also Google Cloud Platform. By the way, like Michael, that was at that particular customer, it was a 5-way bake-off. We competed against Snowflake. We competed against my former employer, Microsoft Azure. We competed against Amazon, AWS Redshift, and Teradata's cloud, for lack of a better term. Maybe Snowflake was the most satisfying win of all those. So, but great job, continuing good work at that particular customer, and thanks for the opportunity to chime in, Phil.
Well, thanks for swooping in. You can swoop in anytime if you say things like that, Jerry. Thank you.
Well, you're a great partner, and it's real customer value. Michael, I was excited when you gave a metric around savings of 73%. We're not there yet. We're still doing the migration at this particular customer, but if I bring them 73% savings in operating costs, I may even get a raise out of it, right? So it's yeah,
and that's pretty typical for Teradata. It's in that sort of 60-70% usually we see. It's a very good return on investment going to GCP. GCP storage is extremely cheap, and the compute costs are very reasonable too. So,
well, and Phil, don't devalue, the value that Raven brings too, because the fact that you can automate a good portion of the query migration saves a tremendous amount of money in professional services. Yep. So not only was the platform much cheaper to run, not only were your services much more reasonable, but the cost to migrate those queries was saved significantly because of the automation functionality of Raven.
Yep, and the error rate reduction by not doing it manually. Yep. All right, thank you. Anybody else want to swoop in before we wrap it up? Thank you, Jerry.
My pleasure, Phil.
All right, Lee, are we wrapping up?
Yep, that's all the questions that we have.
Yeah, great. Well, great webinar rather. Thank you very much, everyone, again. Appreciate it. Thanks for organizing it. Ajinka's stayed up in the middle of the night in India to help us organize this. So thank you, Ajinka and team. And
Yes, pleasure, Phil. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.